Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to episode 83 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name's Andrew Marsh, and I'm autistic. My representation of autism is Asperger's syndrome, or type 1 autism, as it is now known officially in the DSM-5 manual. But I actually prefer you to use the term Asperger's syndrome for how I am and what I have. And I now work with employers to help them better manage people like me in their businesses. How do I do that? Well, I used to be a geologist. Long before I knew I had Asperger's, I was a geologist for 23 years in the construction industry. Interesting industry, quite a hard industry, and I learnt a lot about how to manage people, how to manage teams, how to um, work in multidisciplinary teams, because there could be people from all sorts of disciplines all coming together to produce something that we would go out to contract and someone would build it, whether it's a road, a dam, a bridge, or housing estate, or an industrial unit, or whatever it was. So I've seen at firsthand how people can be well managed. And I've seen at firsthand and lived at firsthand by managers who have absolutely no clue whatsoever on how to manage people. And that makes you wonder sometimes. And I think it's down to one of two reasons, or possibly a combination of both. Firstly, they don't know how to do it, which is kind of excusable if you don't know, if you've never known. But the inexcusable part is they've never been trained into how to manage people, get the best out of people, to inspire people. So I now use my lived experience of, I'm now 59, I was diagnosed with Asperger's 8 years ago. I use my life experiences of how I've managed to get by and succeed and evade some problems and overcome problems. And I've got a 7 steps program, which I work with employers to help them better manage people with Asperger's syndrome in their business. And because I have that lived experience, I can relate to the things that are happening in business. I may not know the ins and outs of their industry, but I can relate to people. Everything is about people and about how you communicate with people. And today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting topic because it's often overlooked. And this is where bad managers excel at being bad managers, because they don't know how to do this. And that is, in the case that we're talking about Asperger's syndrome in the workplace, it's supporting Asperger's syndrome in the workplace, supporting people who have Asperger's, and how can you help them get the best out of themselves. Bad managers won't know how to do that because A, they haven't been trained, and B, they don't know what they're doing. If you're well trained and you can inspire people, people with Asperger's syndrome can be incredibly great employees for a whole host of reasons. Check out some of the previous videos on my YouTube channel. But supporting Asperger's syndrome, what do I mean by that? Well, I think to start off any interaction with anyone, whether they're neurotypical or neurodivergent, if it is you and someone else and you've been put in a room, or someone has rung you on your telephone and you pick up the phone, you have to have a communication with them. Everything starts with communication. So their first step, their first basic step in supporting someone with Asperger's is communication, listening to them, saying, I need some help with this. It would help if you could do this, and then I could carry on and get on with my work and know what I'm doing, and everything would be fine. Listen to the people who have the condition. Really important. Just as an example, which it's fairly straightforward, but it's pretty obvious to say it, but it's worth saying sometimes, stating the obvious. If you had someone who came to your business applying for a job, and they said in there, either in the questions that you have about accommodations for the interview or things of that nature, you might say, is there anything we can help you with to make the experience that you have with us at interview work well for you? They say, well, yes, actually, I'm in a wheelchair. Do you have a lift to the floor you're on? And if you don't, what are you going to do? Do you have a ramp up the stairs? Have you got to get 2 people to drag this person in a wheelchair up the stairs? Unceremoniously, undignified way of doing it. Or what other method do you have? If that's the case, have the meeting on a floor where there is a lift. Have it on the ground floor. Arrange a meeting room on the ground floor. But then you've then got to consider, oh, if this person works for us, our department's on the 7th floor. How are we going to do this? The first thing to do is to listen to the person who has the condition. To say, I have a wheelchair. In this instance, it's I have Asperger syndrome. I'm autistic. I have Asperger's. And there are some things that we can do together, really important, that we can do together to make my work experience good for me so that I can do good work, and working for you so that I'm doing what you want me to do, meeting targets, meeting deadlines, and so on. Have the communication. Say, some of us have traits and sensitivities that make certain things a challenge for us. One of them, well, two or three of them actually, are bright lights, loud noise, and smells. I'm sure you've walked into a room or you've got close to a room and there's been some deafening, booming noise going thumper, thumper, thumper. And you go, oh, I can't go in there. You've already done your own risk assessment by standing outside or getting close to that room by going, oh, I don't want to go in there. That's too loud for me. Well, some of us on the spectrum are very sensitive to loud noise and particular types of noise. So what can you do? The first obvious answer is, can you go and find who's making the noise in the room and see if they can turn it down? It might not be able to. You might be working in a sound environment, a film studio environment, where someone in the sound room has to have something on quite loud so that they can check that it works to the listener, to the viewer, at different sound levels. So they might need to have something played loudly. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to listen to the loud noise. If you're people who are sensitive to it, well, can they work 3 or 4 rooms down the corridor so that they're not subject to the incessant noise? Or are they allowed to have noise cancelling earphones? These are standard normal headphones, but you can get noise cancelling earphones, which means that someone on the spectrum or someone who's just sensitive to noise, they don't have to be autistic to have this. There are some people who are sensitive to noise, can say, do you know what? It's getting too noisy in the office. I'm going to stick my headphones on. And then they carry on with their work. They're not sitting there listening to Beyonce going single ladies and all the rest of it. They're working. They have the headphones on to cut out most of the background noise and that noise which is going on so that they can work effectively and efficiently and productively. They're not sitting there listening to AC/DC or Pink Floyd or Beyonce or whomever. Okay? You have to build a relationship of trust with them. If they say, I need my noise cancelling headphones, can't say it, noise cancelling headphones on, then say, yep, no problem at all. Carry on. Where is the harm in that? Where is the harm? There is no harm. There's no foul. There's no harm. So let the person who has the noise sensitivity be able to wear noise cancelling earphones if they need to. They might not need to all day. They might only need it at certain times of the day when that person in the room next to them is going thumpity, thumpity, bang, bang, whatever. Or the maintenance man is coming in and then putting in new windows and they're banging away with chisels. And there will be circumstances in an office environment where sometimes something is more noisy than the norm. That would be where they would put the noise cancelling headphones on and let them get on with their work. That's an easy solution. Another solution might be, as I've just said, there's quite a large noise, loud noise coming from further down the corridor. Well, if you can put someone who has noise sensitivity problems or challenges further away from that, then you've dealt with the problem. If you can't move the noise, put the person in a place where it's not so noisy. That's not difficult. That hasn't cost you anything. It's cost you nothing to use a desk in a room further down the corridor from where the noise is. Problem solved. Another one of our sensitivities is bright lights, as I said earlier. I don't get bright lights. I'm not particularly good in open plan offices with those wonderfully big fluorescent lights, particularly when they flicker. Now, if they flicker and you've got someone who has epilepsy sensitivity or has epilepsy, you can't have flickering lights because it could trigger a fit or an episode for them. So it's not just autistic people who have those sensitivities. Other people can have them as well. One of the easiest things to do is, and I want to phrase this in a way that doesn't make it sound as though you're putting the autistic person in the quiet, dark corner, but actually, as a punishment, or put them in the quiet, dark corner. Actually, the quiet, darker corner where you can have an angle poise lights just over the top of the computers where they can set them how they want would work much better than being next to the window without a blind and the bright sunlight coming in. Boom, too much light. So you could organize yourself so that the person with the light sensitivity isn't sitting next to the window unless they have control of the blind. And people in the room realize that when it's really sunny, Andrew's going to have the blind down because the bright light affects his ability to work. No problem. Everyone else is okay with that. Smells. Have you ever been somewhere where someone, male or female, has come by and woof, where did that smell come from? It's either perfume or aftershave or deodorant. You know the one I'm talking about. Get a load of teenagers in the room. You know exactly the deodorant I'm talking about, the spray-on stuff. Yeah, you know that stuff. And some of us are sensitive to that. I'm not too bad, but a really, really strong perfume or aftershave will go, no, that's a bit too much for me. But there could be some people in your business who are sensitive to that. So if you're on the same floor as the canteen, either make sure the doors to the corridor to the canteen are shut and only open when people go through them, so that the cooking smells from the canteen don't come through and waft into the department. Or, like I said before, if that person can be put further away from the doors of the canteen, you've taken the problem away. If you put someone in a position where the problem doesn't exist, you've taken the problem away, and that person can then work productively. So those are three simple things. By listening to the person, say, "Yep, I've got a sensitivity to loud noise, so I've got some noise cancelling headphones. If I need to use them, I'd like to be able to use those without having to ask permission and having a great song and dance about it. We've had this discussion. You've understood that there's a need for that in certain circumstances, and that's what I'll do. Because if not, then one of several things will happen. One, I will get agitated. I will get irascible. I will possibly have a meltdown. Or if I can't cope with the noise, I will have to take time off work. So the person isn't working, they're not getting paid, you're not getting productivity out of a valued member of staff. You can resolve all of that by allowing them to put their noise cancelling headphones on. It's not difficult. These things are not difficult to resolve for the majority of instances. Let's go to communication now. And that is the biggie. I said that at the beginning, that communication is one of the biggest things that we do with anyone. However we interrelate with people, we communicate. Have the discussion. Say, I'm going to just backtrack a little bit. And I want to ask you a question. What is your main purpose for employing someone? And I hope your answer is something along the lines of, we've got an item of work or pieces of work that need to be done that can fill someone for 35 to 40 hours a week on an ongoing basis. So therefore there is a need to employ a person to do that work. What we want from that person is that person to be productive and efficient and meet targets that we have that are reasonable and realistic, and be able to do that in a professional and workmanlike manner and get on with the other members of the team, or should there be any. Because if all of that happens, you're going to be productive and you're likely to be able to sell your products well and make money. And let's face it, we have to make money. If a good business doesn't make money, it goes bust. And that only leaves the cowboys left who don't care about what the service they're providing. So good business has to be able to get paid properly to pay its staff, all its business overheads, so that the firm works effectively, productively, profitably. And to do that, you need the person. You need the people in your team to work effectively, productively, and efficiently. And if someone says to you, I would like it when we have a new piece of work that we're going to do, I would like to be able to sit down with you for half an hour or an hour with a cup of tea in a room that's not got all the hullabaloo of what's going on around the room, around the meeting, the room that we're in, or the workplace. So let's find a meeting room or find an office that isn't being used, and let's sit down together and have a chat for half an hour or an hour so that you can brief me on what you want me to do. You will have a checklist because I will need to go through things with you one at a time. So it'd be great if you had a checklist that we could go through, and you give me plenty of opportunity and time to ask questions. And that might mean that you say something to me and you say, "Is that okay?" And I don't answer you. I'm not ignoring you. What I am doing is I'm processing what you just said. And that silence might go on for a minute or two or three. That's where you, as the leader, not manager, the leader, has to be comfortable in that silence so that the person with autism, with Asperger syndrome, is given the time to process, because they could then come up with a killer question that you might never have thought of before. So have that meeting, have that briefing meeting to sit down and go through it piece by piece by piece, item by item by item. If there are subsections within the work, cover each one independently and separately. Say what you want delivered from that so that you know exactly what you're doing. Don't give me a list of 12 things to do and say, bam, 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 bam. Is that all okay? Thanks, goodbye, off you go. That's not going to work. We want logical sequence of events that goes through each point individually, and every time you cover a new point, you give them the opportunity to ask questions and have that thinking time, that processing time. Really important. They might say, I'd like if you, when you're briefing me, I would like if you had some visual aids. Do you have a drawing? Do you have a photograph? Do you have a picture? Do you have a table? Is there a graph? Is there a spreadsheet? How can you make this visually attractive to me so that I can grasp, see, comprehend what it is you're asking me to do? Because it is likely that the output of the person doing the work might also have certain visual needs. If you're doing a report, there might be graphs, there might be pictures. A site location plan would be good. That was always figure one for us when I was a geologist. Figure one, site location plan. Where is the site? Where does it exist in three-dimensional space? There's a map of Glasgow. There's a box around it or an arrow around, a circle around it. There it is. And then the next drawing is a closer up picture of the site. So you know it's in Glasgow, middle of Glasgow. Bam, there you go. And there's the site. So you've got a layman, someone reading that report for the first time goes, it's in Glasgow, it's there, and that's what it looks like. I can understand that. And paragraph one of your report might say, client XYZ has instructed designer ABC to design a facility on their site in Glasgow, which is shown in location one, for the location of which is shown in figure one. That might be your opening paragraph. It quite often was in my reports. Who's commissioned the work? Who have they commissioned? What have they been asked us to do? And where is it? Opening paragraph. There it is. That's what we're going to do. We've been asked to design a bridge. The bridge is over the M74, just south of Glasgow. There's a map. There's a picture. There you go. Boom. Everyone knows what you're talking about. So have things logically, have visual aids to suit so that you can understand what is going on and give people time to consider what you've said. When they're doing the work, you might be someone who always likes to keep on top of what's going on. That's a sort of a euphemism for a micromanager, which isn't really what we want in the modern workplace. What you want to be able to do is you set out what you want them to do. Yes, you need to have check-in points just to make sure that they're going down the right line and they've understood what you want. After a day they've started it, you've got a feel for it. How are you getting on? Just explain what you got up to now, how you're progressing. Yes, you're on the right lines. That's great. Carry on. Speak to you in a couple of days. If you need me in the interim, my door is always open. So that you set that out. Really important that you have that scenario at the start so that you set them off what they're doing. So instead of micromanaging, you say, well, let's have a check-in point. Um, mm, you, we've had our first check-in point on Tuesday morning to check that you've grasped it. Let's have a Thursday afternoon. Why not? 3 o'clock afternoon cup of tea. That's a great place to do it. What we'll do is I'll book a meeting room, or you can come to my office. You can sit down with me with half an hour and have a chat about what we're doing. I can see how you're getting on, and that's fine. What that does is instead of micromanaging, how you getting on, how you getting on, how you going on, busy buzzing around them like a buzzy little fly that's annoying them, you let the person get on and do the work. You've set your stall out with your briefing document, with your briefing meeting. You've let them go on for a little while. You've checked in with them and you let them get on with it. Make sure that they're aware that if they get to a sticking point, they can come and ask you a question. Even if you're busy, you always have to allow for your team to come in and ask you a question. Otherwise, they might have to make a decision, and that decision might be going down a different route from what you want. And you've then got to try and recover a situation when they've worked on something that isn't necessary for a day. If you've got 5 days to do something, you've just lost 20% of your productivity because you weren't available to guide them in the right direction. So it's really important that you set that up. So you've set them up, you had your check-in points, and listen to what they say. If they say this is all okay, this is fine, but I need to be able to have the confidence, particularly when you've got a new employee or you're doing a new project. I need the confidence to be able to come to you and say that I've got a problem, or I've come to a situation where there's 2 or 3 options that we could look at. I've got an idea of what they might be. Just need some guidance as to which one you want me to go for. Always be available for that. So rather than being the micromanager that's buzzing around them like a fly, being a nuisance, give them the freedom and the ability to express themselves and do their work well, because then they'll be productive and you will get at the end what you're looking for. So that's really important to listen. So supporting someone is very much a case of setting things up, having the meeting, and then listening. Listening is as important as it is as talking. There's an old adage, we've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should listen twice as much as we talk. Yeah? Pay attention and listen to what someone is saying. Because if one of your team has got a question that they need an answer to be able to get on with what they're doing, you need to be available to answer that question so that they can keep their flow, they can keep their productivity up and do the good work at the end for the end product. So it's really important that you do that. What else have we got? Clear instructions, checklists. Checklists are great. If you've never used checklists, checklists are great because what it does is it focuses your mind on the tasks, the various tasks that are required in that piece of work you've asked someone to do. In thinking about it to make your checklist, what you're actually doing is you're galvanizing a thought process as to what are the necessary steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to be able to produce and finish that work. So you will have your checklist, you'll know your 5 points, and then you can then convey that with confidence, and the person with Asperger's syndrome that you're talking to or can say, yes, I understand what you're saying because you're giving it to me in a confident and assured manner, which means you've looked at what you're asking me to do. You know what it is that you want me to do. You know what the ins and outs are, the points to look at, the specifics. Oh, don't forget to look at this point. This one caught us out last time when we did it. So we need to pay particular attention to this. Make that part of your checklist so that the person can then understand, yep, highlight that point when it comes up with it, pay a bit more specific attention to it, and things will then go smoothly. So it's really, really important to listen as much as it is to talk. And I know there are many people out there who are managers who love to hear the sound of their own voice. And you're 2.5 hours into a meeting and they're still chattering away. I would suggest that most of that 2.5 hour meeting could be covered in a memo, and actually the issues on the meeting could be done in 40 minutes if you prioritized and decided which of the 3 or 4 points you wanted to make in that meeting. The rest of it could be covered with an email or a memo. Try it. If you're always sitting in meetings that are 2-3 hours long, maybe you're covering too much ground. Maybe you're covering too much ground in too much detail, and some of it could be dealt with in a quicker medium. Maybe not. But just think about it. Because if you've got 6 people sitting in a room for 2.5 hours, that's a lot of productivity that is not being done because they're listening to you talk for 2.5 hours. See if you can make it 40 minutes in an email. Might work. So supporting Asperger syndrome in the workplace is about getting the environment right, seeing what their challenges are and saying, how can we overcome those? How can we accommodate those? And the word is accommodations, reasonable accommodations or reasonable adjustments in business in accordance with the, what's the word? Oh, I've lost it. The Equality Act of 2010 went straight out of my head there. So doing those things about making the work environment suitable for someone to work in is not, it is a matter of law. It is a matter of law that they are legally required to make reasonable adjustments to accommodate people who have certain challenges. And that standard should not be the minimum that you try to attain or the maximum that you try to attain. It should be the minimum, absolute minimum, and you should exceed it. Excuse me one moment. Because as I said earlier, your job as a leader, not a manager, your job as a leader, when you have got a team of people working for you, is to do one thing and one thing only. Support each and every member of staff in the way that works best for them, not you, them, so that they can be at their most productive, efficient, best. I'm going to say that again. Your job as a leader is to support each and every member of your teams in the way that works best for them so that they can be at their productive, efficient, best. Now, that might mean that you need to manage your teams differently for each individual person, or for 2 or 3 people, you have to manage them differently because they accept instructions in a different way. They relate to what you're communicating with them in a different way. So you need to be the one that has to adjust so that you get everyone as productive as possible. It is not, you've got one size fits all box and you're going to knock all the edges off them so that they can fit into it. Because what that will do is that will drop your productivity down like a brick off a mountainside. It will plummet. If you try and force everyone to work in exactly the same way to fit your model, your way of doing it, your productivity will plummet. Your morale will go down, your absenteeism will go up, and you will not be able to retain your good stuff because they're going, I can't work in this environment. This is not working for me. We're being squeezed into a box and none of us fit in it. Your job as a leader is to find a way to support every member of your team in the way that allows each member to be at their most productive, efficient, best. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If that has come as a surprise to you, perhaps we should have a chat. You can get me on my website, which is over my shoulder there. and aspergersmatters.com. And there's a contact form on there you can use. And I'd love to have a chat. If there are things that we talked about today or in any of the other 82 episodes of Talking Asperger with Andrew, and you're sitting there going, "Ooh, not sure about that. Is that right? Should I be doing that? Is he really, is this really the right way to do it? Should I be doing that? What? Well, hang on a minute. I've just lost 7 staff in the last year. Hmm. If you're in that situation and you have an uncertainty about all of those things, any of those things, please get in touch. Andrew at aspergersmatters.com is the email. Aspergersmatters.com is the website, and there's a contact form there. That is today's episode of Talking Asperger with Andrew. And it really is important that when you support people in the right environment, I'm not usually a great one for statistics, because you can make statistics say whatever you want them to. Okay. But I read an article at the back end of last year written by, and it was posted in the Harvard Business School. So this isn't some fly-by-night who's just got an idea. This is Harvard Business School article. And it said, and there's 3 bits to this, and I'll just come back to this in a moment. It said, properly supported in the right environment, someone with Asperger's syndrome can be up to 140% more efficient than their neurotypical colleagues. Okay, let's unpack that for a little moment. And yes, the number at the end is important, but it's the beginning bit that I want to pay attention to. Properly supported in the right environment. Are you properly supporting all of your teams in the right environment? Because if you're not, it doesn't matter how good they are. They could be the spreadsheet whiz. But if you're not properly supporting them in the right environment, they will not be able to do their best work. Guarantee you it. They won't be at peak efficiency, at peak productivity. They'll be way down on the effectiveness. Properly supported in the right environment. Then it says people with Asperger syndrome can be up to 140% more efficient than their neurotypical colleagues. Yes, the number is an interesting number, and it means that if you support us right, we can do great work. But if you support anyone right, they should be able to do great work. It's not the end piece that's a significant thing. It's nice to know that there are companies out there that when they do support people in the right environment, that people who are autistic, who have Asperger syndrome, can be more efficient. One of the reasons is we're not doing this all day down, looking at our phones, chasing our social media. What's on TikTok? Am I swiping left or swiping right with that one? Oh, look at that. We're not doing any of that because we've got a job to do, and we've got to be focused on doing that job, and we're going to do that job to the best of our ability. And if you give me the tools to do it and you support me, bang, I will get it done. But the important part of that statement, that finding from that Harvard Business School report posted on their website, is properly supported in the right environment. Are you doing that? If you're not doing that, if you're not sure you're doing that, if you've had a number of staff leave for a host of reasons over the last year, since we've got back from COVID, have you lost people? Have people bailed out on you? Maybe you're not supporting them in the right environment. There may be other reasons. But you've got to support all of your teams, all of the people in your teams, so that each one of them can be at their authentic best to do their work productively and effectively and efficiently. That's where businesses thrive and shine, and that's where employees feel valued and feel they have worth. That's the winning formula. Be part of that. Be part of that. Step up. And all of the things that I have suggested about how to manage and how to support people with Asperger's syndrome cost almost nothing. If you can't take half an hour or an hour out of your week at the beginning of a week to sit down and go through with someone what you want them to do for the week, if you can't afford that half an hour, you've got something seriously wrong that has nothing to do with your staff in your business. You may not have enough managers. You may not have supervisors between your managers and your employees. There may be a whole host of things, or you may not be very good at managing time, your own time, as well as other people's time. Take the time to set things up and off you go. It's just like taking a free kick in football, or let's take an American football analogy. You never see the offensive line walk about and go for it. They've all lined up. They've got their places where they're going to stand. They've got the defensive line in front of them. They've got the quarterback calling out the calls, and they know exactly what they're going to do for that play. Exactly what they're going to do for that play. They know what the offensive line is going to do and how they're going to block. Are they going to push two people aside so that your running back can go straight up the middle? How are they going to do? How are they going to run that play? Everyone knows because they've taken the time to set it up. They've rehearsed it and rehearsed it and practiced it and practiced it and practiced it. Just like a football situation, a free kick just outside the penalty box. No one just taps it to the side and hopes that your mate's there and he's going to whack it in the back of the net. You get your free kick specialist. You get your central defender might come up because he's tall and he's heavy and he's good and he can smack it in with his head in the back of the net. Are you going to go direct for goal with the free kick specialist, your Ronaldo or your Beckham or your Messi or your Mo Salah or whoever? They set it up. They have practiced what they're doing. They know we've got a free kick just outside the box. It's on the left side, so it's going to be him. Or it's on the right side, it's going to be him. This is what we're going to do. When you see a corner in football, what signal? Next time you're watching a game of football, a game of soccer, if you're watching this in the US way, next time you see a game of soccer and there's a corner, watch what the person who kicks the ball in from the corner does. He will raise his hand and he will raise it in a certain way. That's giving a signal that that's going to be far post. Get your bunts on that and stick it in the back of the net. Or that's going to someone else and that signal is known because they practiced. They know what they're doing. They understand and they're setting things up to succeed. If you don't set things up to succeed, you'll fail. So if you have any questions about managing Asperger syndrome in the workplace, please feel free to get in touch. My name's Andrew Marsh. Keep a lookout tomorrow afternoon when I will be posting the video of this on my YouTube channel. And either on Friday or Saturday afternoon, I will be posting what next week's topic is about. But it's been great having you on board. If you're watching this on replay on YouTube channel, please like and subscribe and comment. It helps me build my metrics up. But if I can help you somewhere in your business get the best out of someone with Asperger syndrome, I would welcome the opportunity to. And if you're not sure and you really don't know what questions to ask, let's have a chat. Let's just take all the titles away. Let's just have a conversation because everything starts with a conversation. That's all for this week. Take care. See you next week. Goodbye.